No justice.
No peace.
No racist.
Release.
The people united will never
Be divided. The people united will never be divided. The people united will never be divided.
Thank you, everyone. Can you hear me? Yes. Folks can gather around, but also me take some social distancing. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. On behalf of members of the Public Defender's Office, the Alternate Public Defender's Office, we want to welcome everybody that is here. We would like to thank members of our community who are present and members of the Defendant Bar that have joined us today. We also want to thank any members from community organizations as well as officials that are present, and I want to especially recognize Supervisor Hannigan, who is joining us. I'd like to thank our head public defender, Elena D'Agostino, our chief, Kamani Taylor and Oscar Barbaro. Oscar is also the president of the California Public Defenders Association, and Tommy Barrett, the chief alternate public defender, as well as our former public defender, Leslie Caldwell, who's joining us today. I know we're in a small space and it's a little hard to do, but we also want to remind everyone to try to maintain some social distance and wear your mask. Your health, our health, and the health of our community is important, and we want to be safe as we gather here today. We are in the midst of a global pandemic, but we are also here in the United States dealing with 400 years of the pandemic of racism. We have been called to gather here in solidarity with protests nationwide, calling for justice on behalf of those who have been abused or killed by police. At this very moment, public defenders throughout nationwide are coming together and calling for justice. 60 public defender offices across the country will demonstrate today in solidarity.
Yeah.
We are marching and gathering in front of our respective courthouses in support of Black lives, in support of racial justice, and in support of police accountability.
Yeah.
We are coming together today in honor of George Floyd.
Yeah.
George Floyd, a man who was assassinated in broad daylight by police. An assassination that we have all witnessed as he fled for his life. His death and the death of countless others have moved all of us to stand up and demand justice. In 2014, after the death of Mike Brown, Bay Area public defenders came together and started a grassroots organization called Public Defenders for Racial Justice to organize today's statewide and nationwide event. 5.5 years ago, many of us on December 18, 2014, stood on these very steps, calling for justice after the death of Mike Brown, who laid in the streets of Ferguson after 4.5 hours after being shot by Officer Darren Wilson. We stood in solidarity together then with protests in Ferguson, New York, and countless other cities throughout the country. We stood with public defenders for racial justice throughout the Bay Area. We gathered here in 2014 not only to call attention to the killing of black and brown men throughout the country, but also in our very own community. In 2012, the Vallejo Police Department's fatal officer-involved shootings was 38 times the national average. And the rate of fatal officer-involved shootings for 100,000 residents by Vallejo Police was 20 times the rate of Oakland and San Francisco. The Vallejo Police Department that year was responsible to 25 to 30% of total homicides. 5.5 years later, Countless black and brown men and women have died at the hands of law enforcement in our country, and black and brown men have continued to die at the hands of law enforcement here in Solano County, including this past week when Sean Monterosa, a 22-year-old young man, had his life taken from him by Vallejo police.
Today, once again, we are joining public defenders and criminal defense attorneys throughout the state calling for police accountability. San Francisco Public Defender Manuel Raju has said it best. Police who abuse their power should not be wearing a badge. While oversight and early intervention is important, it means nothing if there's rarely any meaningful disciplinary action or change. A massive overhaul of our policing system is needed, and it must be driven by the wisdom of the communities most impacted by systemic abuse. And we know very well, as defense lawyers, that the use of force, whether justified or not in individual cases, is systemically problematic. We are tired of new hashtags every day. We are tired of a new injustice every hour. Because George Floyd's life mattered. Breonna Taylor's life mattered. Sean Monterosa's life mattered. Because Willie McCoy's life mattered.
Yes.
Ahmaud Arbery, who although wasn't killed by law enforcement, was a victim of racist and justified violence, and his life mattered.
Yes.
Philando Castile, his life mattered. Tamir Rice, his life mattered. Stephon Clark, his life mattered. Sandra Bland, her life mattered. The life of our clients matters.
Yes.
We know the indignities our clients have suffered, not just at the hands of police, but at the hands of the criminal justice system. And we are here to say that protesting works, organizing works, mobilizing works. Changes are occurring because people are taking it to the streets. Within 10 days of sustained protests, Minneapolis bans use of chokeholds. Charges were upgraded against the officer who killed Mr. Floyd, and the other officers involved are arrested and charged. In Maryland, a bipartisan work group of state lawmakers announced a police reform work group. Los Angeles City Council introduces a motion to reduce the LAPD's $1.8 billion operating budget. And even the street in front of the White House has now been renamed Black Lives Matter. Justice is now investigating the Vallejo Police Department based on their history of fatalities, as residents have complained for years of a wide pattern of excessive force and overly aggressive policing. It is up to all of us to ensure we hold officers accountable in our communities. Now is the time that we organize and mobilize. Now is the time to demand that we do better. Stand with our public defender family, defense bar, residents of Solano County, and allies to build community around issues that impact our clients and all of us. Now we're going to hear a few words from the public defender of Solano County, Elena D'Agostino.
We have lost too many people of color and people who are supposed to protect us. We have lost too many people of color at the hands of those who are supposed to protect us. My heart breaks for them, for their families, for their communities. We have all failed them. As public defenders, we have been on the ground seeing the injustice through the eyes of our clients for years, hearing from them about violence perpetrated against them by the same officers, year after year, day after day. The bad apples have been protected by their colleagues, and there has been institutional failure to rein them in.
Yep.
When the people of the community cannot trust the police to keep them safe, nobody is safe. It harms everybody. As a Gen Xer, I think we think about what Shelley just said. I've always been really skeptical about the power of protest to make lasting change. I grew up in the wake of the 60s, where years and years and years of protests failed to have any impact on the Vietnam War. And while we had the Civil Rights Act passed, it was followed almost immediately by the war on drugs, which has caused so much harm to communities of color. And in recent years, I found myself doubting Dr. King when he said that the arc of the moral universe bends towards justice. But things are different now, and change is coming. Real change is coming. The prevalence of video recordings has gradually opened the eyes of Americans to what we as public defenders have known for years. The killing of George Floyd has unleashed an outpouring of support. Was the alleged use of a forged $20 bill an important enough crime to justify an immediate arrest with such force that he was killed lying in the street?
No.
Change can happen. We're seeing it now. We've seen it in other cities, and hopefully change is coming here. But all of this means we need to fundamentally reevaluate how we in our society, police, decide to prosecute crimes, decide what level of force is appropriate, what crimes justify being arrested versus being diverted or not being brought to court at all. We need to figure out what is the effectiveness of the system we have today and how can we build one that truly makes everyone safer. So I am here today to support the push, to help the push for real change with our system. I am very confident that we will now be able to start seeing true reform in our country. And now we'll hear from Tommy Barrett from the Alternate Defenders.
Ever since May 29th, when George Floyd was killed, and protests were broken out across this country and have picked up steam, and you see protests in places you've never seen before, people are saying, this time it's going to be different.
Better be.
I hope that's true. I hope we're not back here in 5 years like we were in 2014, protesting then.
No, sure.
What is not new is the long history of violence by law enforcement against African American people and people of color.
Right.
The main thing, not the only thing, but the main thing different this time is, at least in the cases of George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery, they were caught on camera. Those explanations that the prosecuting authorities rely on, not file charges, they say the stuff was justified, the officer was threatened, the person was resisting, they had no choice but to end their life. You can't tell those lies when it's caught on camera. Will things be different this time? And if not now, when? The city in which we all gather here today has its own long and recent history of police violence against African Americans and people of color. Since 2011 alone, and I know there's folks out here who'll go back further than that, and please do, but since 2011 alone, the Vallejo Police Department has killed 17 people in this community.
Damn.
They've engaged in countless acts of excessive force. And not a single prosecution, not a single criminal charge has ever been filed for excessive force or the killing of these individuals.
It's amazing.
For an officer who kills someone in Vallejo, and this is just fact, this is not opinion, you're more likely to be promoted than prosecuted. Are we going to be back here in 3 months or 6 months
It's likely.
when the chief law enforcement officer of Solano County has completed their review and told us that they had no choice? They had to kill Sean Monterosa.
Yeah.
Will things be different this time? If not now, when? Think about it for a moment. Think about it for a moment. These 17 people who were killed. The families of these 17 people who were killed. Brian Stevenson tells us that the opposite of justice is not injustice, it's hopelessness. Every one of those people who were killed, someone's son, someone's brother, someone's nephew, someone's grandson, in some cases someone's father, someone's uncle. Their death, just like any other human being, ripped a gaping hole in the lives of their family and friends. An open wound.
Amen. Talk to me, brother.
An open wound that still exists.
Sick.
Their lives matter, and their deaths matter too. And then their families and loved ones come to the chief law enforcement officer of Solano County, no matter who's headed up that office, and they make the most simple request, the most basic form of justice and accountability, a day in court. They want a day in court for the person who indisputably killed their loved one. These are not whodunits. These are not. They want a day in court, a public trial, and from 12 people that are drawn from a fair cross-section of the community, where those 12 people get to hear all the evidence, get to hear all the argument, and they decide, they find the facts, whether it was justified or not. Let the community be the fact finders. Not just but time and time and time again, no matter who heads up the office and no matter what the circumstances are, the answer is always the same. No. No, not for you. Not for you and your family. These doors, they're closed to you of this criminal justice system. No matter what the circumstances, no matter if their child was unarmed, no matter if their child did not actually threaten the police with deadly force, no matter if their child was running away when they were shot, no matter if their child was sleeping just seconds before they were shot. No matter if their hands were up and they were kneeling, no matter if they were shot in the back, no matter what. If a police officer did it, the laws do not apply to them. And this criminal justice system, it ain't available to you.
Praise God. Amen.
Will it be different this time?
No.
If not, when?
No. No.
Late last week, the chief law enforcement officer for the state of California announced that they're going to be conducting a, quote, expansive review
Yeah, right.
of the Vallejo Police Department to reform its policies and practices.
Said it before.
Well, y'all are more hopeful than me because I don't know what that means.
Yeah, really.
I don't know what that means.
Okay.
You know, there can be no meaningful reform until there's accountability. I'm all for better practices. Who's holding them accountable to those practices?
Nobody.
Their bosses? Their close allies in the district attorney's office? I have a policy change for you. How about this? Equal justice under the laws. Until it is clear, based on action and not words, that law enforcement officers will no longer be exempted from the same laws that apply to every one of us here today, Until that time comes, there can be no true reform and justice. Let a jury decide. Let a jury decide whether the facts and whether the officer's actions using deadly force were warranted. Any reform has to include accountability. The time for accountability is now. No longer should the people with the most training in the use of deadly force be held to the lowest standard. No longer can the use of deadly force be the first option and not the last resort. No longer can the chief law enforcement officer of this county and this state be allowed to categorically and systematically close the doors to the criminal justice system to police violence. If not now, when?
No.
Thank you.
I'd like to call up Tamani Taylor, one of our chief public defenders.
I'd just like to say it's so wonderful to see so many people out here in protest of police violence and the murder fact of local and nationwide police forces. I don't have a written speech. I felt it was better to speak from the heart as a person of color, a black woman, as a daughter of a black man, as the wife of a black husband, as the sister of black brothers, and as the aunt of black nephews. I can tell you this, I don't know what they're experiencing now, those black men in my life that are so very close to me. I don't know what they're going through, but what I can tell you is what I go through in being so close to them. I can tell you my story, and I can talk to you about my fear. And let me tell you something about my fear. When my husband walks out the door every day, a sense of fear is overwhelming until he walks back in that door. And let me tell you something, if he's gone and the doorbell rings, before I look through that peephole, I pray to God it's not a death notification. And when I get a phone call from a family member, my sister-in-law or my sister or my other sister-in-law or my brother or anybody else, I think, please God, don't let them be calling me to tell me there was a death notification. So I say that because that's the fear I live in. And some people out there who don't understand the fear I live in because they're not as closely connected to black men as I am, might say I'm paranoid. They might say I'm irrational, and they might say that fear is unreal. Sometimes I question my own fear as being those things. Are you just being paranoid? Are you just being irrational? But when I hear stories about a woman asleep in her bed in between shifts as an EMT, getting murdered in her sleep, that fear that I feel is not paranoid, it's not irrational, it is very real. And when a young man is jogging in his neighborhood and is tracked down and trapped and murdered, that story, when I come across that story, that makes my fear real and rational and not paranoid. And when I hear and I come across a story of a black man who was murdered in broad daylight on a busy street in front of a crowd over $20, that makes my fear real and rational. So don't tell me it's not. And when I hear about a young man in my own county that I've lived in for 30 years, Sean Monterosa, being gunned down, shot 5 times while surrendering peacefully on, at most, a property crime, being murdered, that makes my fear reasonable, rational, and real. It prevents you from living free.
Yeah.
And so every day I live in fear. Every day where they don't live free. And that's a promise the country made, is that we would be able to live free. And through systemic racism that's ordained by county officials and city officials, nationwide officials, it prevents a whole segment of the nation from living free. Free cannot exist where fear does. Now, some people might say, well, it's a complicated situation. It's hard to resolve. Man, you can't, it's not overnight. Let me tell you something. I'm going to do this by analogy, and then I'll bring it back. I have a basket of apples, and I look in my basket of apples, and there's one rotten apple on top. If I take that apple and I throw it away, what am I left with? A basket of good apples. Let's say I have that same basket of apples, and I look in it and I see a rotten apple. And I take that rotten apple and I bury it at the bottom of the basket. And all of its rot and toxicity leads into all the good apples. What am I left with? What am I left with in my basket? A basket of what?
Rotten apples.
Amen?
Amen.
So when a police department covers up, lies about what an officer did and tries to justify and then close ranks around them in this thin blue line, you know what happens to any good officers that are in that precinct or department? They get rotten.
Yep.
But guess what? You know what the answer is? If you take clear and decisive action on that officer, and you're transparent, and you remove that officer, they can't infect and invade the good officer. And what does that do to the public? What does that do to the public? It gives the public respect and confidence in their, and we're not at war with the police. Right now, black and brown people and those that are in the struggle with us, we're at war with police departments. That is not the function of a police department. But if you can get rid of the bad apples in your precinct, in your department, in that department, then you're left with good officers and a healthy relationship with the community they serve.
And Indian lives matter too. All lives matter. And if you don't care nothing about your own family, then stay the fuck out of mine. Peace in the hood. Hood in the hood. Can I get my hand clap? No more Indians in this town but me. Ain't none. And I'm out here by myself. All night, all day. Don't nobody like me because they shooting foreign arrows at me. But guess what? All lives matter. Because it completes the whole family when they lose one. Get on your knees and start praying and ask the Lord Jesus if you're a believer. Are you serving the devil in the house well?
Peace in the hood.
Peace in the hood.
Hi, my name is Courtney Reed. I'm the attorney with the Alternate Defender's Office. I just wanted to thank everybody for coming out today in support of Black Lives. And I wanted to say that I feel really encouraged